All right, hello. It's 6 o'clock, so let's get started. I will be talking to you about narrative design, creating an emotional impact. This will be mostly related for LARP writing, but is probably useful for creating any type of fiction, role plays, writing novels, anything similar, but my experience and the presentation is mostly towards creating LARPs. Let's see. All right. Who am I? My name is Laura Kröger. I'm a Finnish LARPer and LARP creator for over 20 years, with 200 plus LARPs played and about 50 LARPs organized. I am mostly a producer and narrative designer in LARPs I've created, and in real life I play senior project manager. This presentation will mostly, if you are very seasoned LARP creator, it probably don't have any huge revelations, but it hopefully will function as a checklist, what kind of things to consider when creating narrative towards creating an emotional impact for your players. And for newer organizers, there is probably going to be quite a bit of useful information to absorb. What kind of LARPs have I done? Here are a couple of the most well-known stuff. Odysseus was a huge international LARP created in 2019 and 24, where I was a lead producer and narrative designer. Heirs of Saint Hill is a vampire and werewolf LARP, which I ran 7 times in total, starting from 2014. And Shadows in Time is a very small, intense family drama, which I have run 20 times since 2001. So these are one of the LARPs which I have poured some of this knowledge into. So, emotional impact, what is it? Feeling real emotions when playing in a LARP. Can be sorrow, loss, rage, in Finnish type 2 fun. It can be romantic, chemistry, infatuation, a moment between another player. It can be belonging, connection, unity, something created with a community. Or it can be a rush, adrenaline, victory, accomplishment, success, something you feel really passionately in when you are experiencing it. Emotional impact can also be transformative. It can change players' way of thinking or how they feel about something. But I am more focusing on the first half of this slide, since there are far better people talking about the transformative part than I am. So, few of the basics I have built these thoughts around is that great LARP isn't necessarily an emotional one, and emotional LARP isn't necessarily great. So these can both be true at the same time. When aiming towards an emotional impact, decide what you are trying to achieve, what kind of LARP you are wanting to create. If you are wanting for something light, or if you are aiming for something more deep and more emotional. And there are 3 base elements which I have found to be useful when considering this. What is the foundation on what the emotional content is based? So what is the backstory or the setting of the LARP, what kind of story you want to tell. Circumstances that make it possible to have that emotional experience. and then time to experience it. If you are too rushed, if you have too much on your plate, then you don't have time to actually feel anything because you are too rushed to do all sorts of stuff. Intentional emotional impact is very much created in design, both in planning and during runtime, but it can also be completely created by players or happen without an intent. So there are a lot of really emotional LARPs which I have played, which have very little to do what the LARP was originally aimed for, or what was the plan for organizers behind it. So, how to create it? There is organizer effort, there is a player effort, and then there is a combined effort from both. Organizer effort, usually in Finnish type of LARPs, organizers write characters, they create plots, they create some events in their LARPs, they create the whole backstory. They may guide their players with some homework or some workshops that will give the players an idea towards what to go towards, or how to gain more impact on those feelings that the players are having in the LARP. But then there is also a player effort. There is studying and learning, reading your character, connecting, talking with your co-players, immersing yourself into the LARP and into the story. No organizer can do this for you. This is something that the player needs to bring into the table. And different kind of elements are in a different spots. So it is chemistry between two players, or connection between two players, or a group dynamic can be created mostly through player effort. But then there are a lot of elements, like if you want your players to feel loss, it is probably something you as an organizer need to plan for the players to encounter in that LARP. If you want players to feel success, it can happen organically, but it is much more likely that it will happen if you are planning towards player succeeding what they are doing. Surprise, if you want to bring some element that the players weren't expecting, that is mostly on your end of this spectrum. When you start creating a LARP, usually we have lots of great ideas what we want to create in that LARP. We have plans, but then we slightly miss the mark because we didn't stop to think if that actually works in practice. So here you are as a character writer. Here is your finalizing a plot or doing a cross-check to make sure that it actually works. And here are a new plot, a new character, watching Netflix. Whatever you can distract yourself, because this last bit is the most boring part of creating something, of creating a LARP.
I'm so offended.
Because this is the stage where most of that emotional impact is created. And this is the most overlooked part when we create LARPs, because we are too busy. Usually we have lots of other characters to write in this stage, or we are already so overwhelmed and so exhausted that we want to just sit and watch Netflix. So we skip the most important part, which is to step back and think that does this actually work in this LARP? Yes. So this is the chance to realize if something isn't working. When you are planning plots, when you are creating characters, when you are creating plot hooks for your characters and mixing them with each other, you can't constantly be looking back if everything is still working towards your great vision and towards what you want for the players to experience in the LARP. So this stage is the one where you stop and you look back that did those great visions and great ideas which I had, are they actually working? Are they actually happening the way I was intending? Or is something that you have done along the way when you have been writing the character, writing other characters, doing other plots, have they started to diminish or derail the original idea you had for that character? So when you have completed your character for the LARP and when you have completed all the characters for that LARP, take a moment to look that are the things I wrote relevant? If not, why are they there? I think that most of us have sometimes received a character where is maybe one or two things that are actually relevant for the LARP. And then lots of fluff because the organizer didn't want to send you a 3-line character for that LARP. What kind of emotions am I aiming for the players to feel? Does this design support it? If I am writing a very heavy, drama-intense LARP, which is aiming for very tense and somber feelings of sorrow, if I'm writing too many comic relief characters, they will start to diminish that aim, what I originally had for that LARP. How the plot, the drama, the emotions get into play, and am I sure that they will? Because when you are having this idea of certain type of plot, what you are want to have in your LARP, or type of character what you want to have, it is different thing what you are thinking and what the player will think when they get the character. So they might not immediately go into the same place than you are. And even if you are creating plot hooks and ways for things to be revealed, players might have some other ideas. So make sure that the things you want your players to experience, that they actually do experience those things. Does this character's connections have reason, means to play with this character? If they have an intense romance, but the other person is locked in a negotiations for the entire LARP, then there is no chance for the drama to unfold during that LARP because the other party is occupied in somewhere else. What does this character do in the LARP? What is the main agenda for this character? And does that support the arc which you are aiming for this character or this LARP? And is this character relevant to the LARP, and in what way? Because I think that most have, at least at some times, been in a LARP playing a character and felt that if my character would be removed in this LARP, nothing would change, and there is no meaning in anything that I do in this LARP, and it is not a great feeling to have. And because this is the most overlooked stage in your LARP creation process, what you can do about it is to make time in your writing calendar for other stuff and these oh shit situations that make it impossible for you to focus for this step as well. I am a very deadline-oriented person, so I am usually doing everything on the last minute, meaning that I too will overlook this step every now and then, and but at least I know that I shouldn't. I think that most of us have at least once or twice been in a LARP where we get our character and we are like, oh, this is very nice. I have very, very tragic backstory. I can really pour something out of this. I can really get some really good feelings out of this. very tragic backstory. Maybe your mentor abandoned you. Maybe you lost your first love. Maybe stranger murdered your parents. Maybe you were betrayed by your best friend, or you failed your loved one. Your entire village was slaughtered. You used to be an assassin, a spy, a prisoner of war, whatever tragic and cool stuff. This is what is written in your character. And then, more often than not, there is an expectation that this backstory somehow transforms into great feelings and great emotions in a LARP. But it doesn't. It can if there is some luck involved, but what you need for that tragic backstory to be relevant for the LARP is a trigger. It can be contact present. It can be that your mentor appears after years of absence. It can be some event that happens. It can be a dilemma that is presented to you that is relevant for your backstory. It is some secret that is revealed. It can be a letter, a phone call. It is some additional information that you receive in the LARP. If there is just a tragic backstory, that is not an emotional experience in the LARP. You need something that happens during that LARP that triggers those emotions, that triggers the emotional response that is built with that tragic backstory to actually have emotions during the LARP. We have a player here. We have a love triangle. We have a political agenda. We have some family drama. We have some group dynamic going on. And then we here as an organizer are wondering why our player is not having a very emotional LARP and why they are just running around like a headless chicken trying to play all these different kind of stuff that we have built on top of other stuff. If the character has too much on their plate, the player might not have time to focus on any of it. In core of many successful plots or emotional dilemmas, there is a pull to opposite directions. So, but it is important to make a distinction which additions support this narrative and which diminish it. So you can have a dilemma between your love triangle and your political agenda. And this can be a very core of your experience and the pull between these two futures or these two things that you both want and you can't have. But if you start building too much on top of that, then you don't have time to focus on the actual emotional experience that is in the core of your character. Because if you have too much things to focus on, then you start doing a checklist and just doing those tasks one by one instead of actually stopping and experiencing those feelings which we are aiming for you to have. So when thinking of a character, what is the core narrative for this character? And are all of the plots in that character supporting it? There can be lots of different kinds of plots, but if they are all building towards that narrative arc, that dilemma which we want that character to have, then it is a good design. If they are tearing this character into a different direction and not giving anything to each other, then that is bad design. So, and this also relates on timing of different aspects and plots in order to create that narrative arc for that character instead of you are just having a really good emotional scene and then your attention is being pulled away to something that is completely irrelevant for that scene and that plot. This is a narrative diagram from a LARP, Heirs of Saint Hill, which I have been using in one of my earlier talks some years ago. And now, with some years later, I can, with great confidence, say that this was too much. So it is easy to sort of steer towards, maybe I still add this one thing, so if these other things do not work, then at least this player has this thing that probably works. But my focus has been shifting over the years towards getting a bit less and a bit more meaningful, although I still do have a lot of stuff and I am still learning with this. I think that we have been this player in one LARP or another in some LARPs. So we are usually, we as an organizers are always worried that our players are not having a bad time, that they are bored. And when we are looking at the LARP from outside, the players, some of the time, or actually most of the time, they look like they are bored. But they might be having a really good, really emotional scene, but it's just not visible to us because we are not right in there in that scene, listening and feeling what the players are doing. So we have a couple of players around the room talking quietly with each other, and then we are like, oh no, they are bored. We need to do something. We need to have some big dramatic thing happening right now, or they are getting bored. And then you are triggering some event. There is some negotiation that needs to happen right now, or there is some really important message being delivered. And then all the players are like, yeah, it was a good LARP, but it would have been better if there would have been less interruptions for our emotional scenes, which we wanted to play. End of the world is our favorite topic. And I think that a lot of LARPs have different end of the world kind of plot lines going on. And the feedback that I get most for the LARPs which have this kind of element involved is that the LARP was good, it was better if there wouldn't have been the end of the world. So I'm still learning. And maybe there will one day be a LARP without the end of the world. So what kind of meaningful content can there be to allow players to have these emotional experiences in the LARP? And things to consider is that, does the LARP as a whole support this slower emotional play? Is this something you want to commit? Because to have players to feel real emotions and to have real emotional scenes, there need to be time to also get a bit bored. Because if there is no time for players to feel those emotions, to build that drama, then they don't have time to actually start feeling those deeper emotions. If players are too busy, there is no time for emotions to become meaningful enough. Few things are more frustrating than have an emotional scene being interrupted by the end of the world or negotiations or a speech from a king. And different kind of emotions require a different setting. So this is also when you are thinking what kind of LARP you want to create, think what kind of emotions you want your players to feel, because different feelings, different emotions they need a really very different settings to be built on. Are the overarching events and plots supporting the characters, plots, and emotions? So if there is the end of the world, are the individual characters' arcs and their emotions tied to that big plot, or is it coming out of nowhere and stealing the spotlight for those things that the players would actually want to experience. This is a Google Map picture from a crossroad near of my house. And I like it because it is a pretty decent illustration of when we are thinking of plots, what we want to create. The black line in the map is how the intended walk path goes next to my home. And this is how we create LARP plots sometimes. We are doing some kind of twists and turns. And what we fail to consider is that players usually choose the easiest road. So instead of going around these hoops which we are creating for them, they are like, there is a straight line, I will walk from there.
And sometimes they go to the tennis field.
Yeah, that too. So think through what you are doing and why. If it's too complicated, it probably doesn't work. Consider this with small and big design elements, both. And consider that players interpret things vastly different ways. So even if it's very clear for you that if I would be this player, I would of course go to this direction, that is not the case with all of the players you have in your LARP. Direction you want your players to go has to feel right. It has to be the correct choice for the character to make, for the players to go into that direction. And think what other solutions and outcomes there are for the plot and drama you have created, and if they are more likely than the outcome you are aiming for. Because this is what the players will do in your behalf if you haven't. So consider this is what I want players to do, but what else can they do? And how do I prevent that if you don't want them to do that? It is completely all right to create signposts for players, like plot this way. It can be briefs, it can be meta instructions in the character. It is completely all right to steer your players towards where there is most play for them to have. But it still needs to tie into it cannot be too complicated, and it needs to feel right for the players. It is there is few things that are more frustrating than organizer telling you, you need to do this if it doesn't feel at all what my character would do, in my opinion. So also be ready to let go of your visions if your players are like, no, this is not something my character would do. I don't want my play to go into this direction. Because once you give your characters to the players, they are theirs. And make sure that the player agency is aligning with your overarching vision so that what the players want to do and what they can do in the LARP, it supports for what you want them to do in the LARP. It says if someone in the back doesn't see. Yes, we had one dramatic encounter. What about the second dramatic encounter? Emotional impact in LARP requires build-up and consistency. Players often have a tendency to streamline things. They have this problem-solution thinking. When most of the really good emotions come from not doing a solutions right away, just stewing in that drama and letting it play out, letting it get more complicated, letting it build throughout the LARP. Too often players are very keen to, I have a problem, I have a triangle trauma, so in the first hour I will solve this by leaving this other person and running into the sunset with the other. And then most of the emotional play does not happen in that LARP. With this, you can also do a lot of player guidance. You can point blank tell them that don't do this. It doesn't help completely, but it helps a little bit. So if your players sort of know what is the overall timetable for your LARP, how much time they have to play, and if there are some big events coming at some steps of the way, so they can also guide their own play a little bit towards when can I have time to play my emotional scenes, and when do I need to start looking for resolution or solution for this problem if I want to find one during the LARP. And to tell them that don't make any decisions in the first half of the LARP and just make everything more complicated. Make the emotions relevant throughout the LARP. You can drop new information, new things that tie into the old things, and flare up the drama that may have already been somewhat discussed and disclosed, and then something new happens and it's going to be relevant again. Circumstances for the emotions to flare up again, and consistency, so the right emotions for the LARP, so that there are not going in a completely different direction from what you were originally aiming, or what the first half of the LARP was. If you are going in completely different direction for the second half, then it can start diminishing the feelings and emotions the players were building in the first half. Elements out of which you can create emotional impact for the player. Mirror contact is a term I've been using at 10 years or so, meaning that you have, if some connection of is very important for your character, then your character is also equally important to that character. Because I think that most of us have been in LARPs where we have a bunch of connections, but then we realize during the LARP that we are actually not that important to any of them. And in those kind of situations, you don't get these emotions because the other character is probably playing their great emotions with someone else. So when creating the LARP, try to create these mirror dynamics. Each character should have more than one mirror connection, because it might be that the chemistry isn't working in one of those, and there are it is a good thing to have sort of different conflicts in the character, as long as they are not too much diminishing each other. Character needs to have an opportunity, so time and space, what kind of venue you have, are there, if characters need to have a private moment and there is no private place in your location, then there won't be any intimate scene happening between those characters, because the venue isn't making it possible. So make sure that when you are creating a LARP, that where you are playing it is actually suitable for the type of LARP you are creating, and that you are not making it too packed so that players have actually time to have those experiences. There are circumstances and direction for the emotions, what you want your players to experience, and then there are triggers in the LARP that make those relevant. What if it doesn't work out? So we are having this LARP with fewer, more impactful connections and plots, and then we have someone like, but we do make more as a backup if those doesn't work. And I'm in this picture, and I'm usually in the ending up, well, maybe just a couple more plots just in case. And I'm trying to aim a little bit away from that. It isn't worth to dampen the impact by creating too many fail-safes. It sucks if the LARP doesn't work for someone, and there are many tools to try to minimize that risk. Clear communication what the LARP is and isn't, casting, engaging and inspiring players, homeworks, workshops, making sure that players are doing their part, because as I said earlier, this is a team effort between the organizer and player, and you can only carry the players to a certain extent. If you make too many backup plots or steer away from creating intense emotional plots out of fear that they do not work out, then you take away the experience from everyone and not just those who it didn't work out. So it is important when you are thinking that maybe I'll still do few fail-safe plots and a few more connections just in case. Make sure that they are supporting the initial plots, the initial emotions, what you want your players to feel, and think that is it really important or is it necessary? And even the best efforts does not equal a good experience. There are a lot of things that are out of organizers' hands, and it is important to understand that I tend to replay a lot of my LARPs, and it is really interesting to look from run to run what kind of things consistently work, what kind of things are uneven, so that in some cases they work brilliantly and in some they don't, and then to analyze why they did not work in the other runs. And it gives a lot of understanding what kind of things you can have, you can impact and have influence, and what kind of things you can't. It is possible to build chemistry between players in workshops, but it is not for every LARP to create that kind of workshops that create chemistry between players. So it is a luck factor mainly. You can do something with the casting if you know your players. If you don't, then you really can't. Timings, you can impact on your timings, the things you bring into the LARP, but you cannot completely guide your players. So the players might decide to drop some huge bomb in a very early in the LARP and throw off all your plans regarding how you want it to things unfold during that LARP. You can affect it by putting some revelations, some plots behind timers and meta instructions for the players that you cannot reveal this big secret until a certain point in the LARP. But it's also important to consider what kind of LARP you are creating and if this is adding enough for the LARP to be meaningful enough to have there. There might be a player's personal situations. Players might be going in completely different direction in some other plots. Player interpretations are different from what you were thinking. There can be bad weather, breaking technology, other disruptions to your plans, last-minute cancellations and changes, other unexpected issues. So there are a lot of things that are affecting the outcome. So if some things do not work out, if they fail, it is also a very good idea to think what kind of factors were in play. Why did this not work out in the LARP? Instead of immediately jumping that I didn't have enough plots or enough connections, or maybe I just shouldn't do this kind of stuff because it doesn't work. When it works, it gives players really, really good experiences, and it's worth aiming towards. I am nicely on time. Are there any questions? We have 6 minutes time.
One comment. I was thinking about timing and being busy and being interrupted. I actually think the worst thing would be the combination of both. Because in other shows I was super busy to the extent that the several co-players told me that a big part of their game was trying to look for me because I was always doing something else. But I did have some really emotional moments because I was not interrupted.
Yeah.
There was very little in that game that would interrupt my character doing something that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, I think pilots would be interrupted a lot, but they have time sitting in their cockpits and do nothing else than be emotional.
Yeah.
So the combination of being busy and then when you have the time to be emotional being interrupted by the king would be the worst. Yeah,
very much. And what I would like in general say is that when you understand why these things shouldn't be done, then you can start breaking them when you understand what you are doing with that, because I write a lot of LARPs where most of this thing is being done anyways. But I do think that there are, these are, especially when starting to aim towards more emotional, more slower play, it is easier to start following rules and then start dropping them off when you know that that is what you want to do. Because also being busy can create emotionally intense scenes when you have the small moment to do that, to have that scene.
Just quickly, how would you sort of relate the length of the LARP and then the sort of how to think about the number of plotlines or emotional things that you want them to experience during that?
I think that the shorter the LARP is, the less emotions you have time to experience. So you can have very intense emotions in a 1 hour LARP, but you need a prep and you need like a proper setting for that. When you have a longer LARP, 2 days LARP, there can be a lot of different kind of emotions which you go through during that time, because there is that much time to have those emotions, and that can be part of the arc, to go from happiness to sorrow and acceptance and victory or loss or whatever, and that can be part of the arc.
Can you say a few words about writing emotional arcs?
that would be a topic of its own, so no.
I have a question about the earlier part of the presentation.
Yeah.
When you were explaining about like, do not fill your character's backstory with things that don't really have anything to do with the LARP itself.
Yeah.
I have been part of like running this, well, not really a campaign, but a LARP, which is every year the setting is that it's like takes place in a university, which kind of like, well, I think we all know that the structure, that how the institutions are structured, that like it isn't like responding really personally to like students or the people that go there, and especially because it's like, well, I'm looking at this from, and I guess I'd like to hear your opinion on, because I'm technically now having like supposed to be teaching people who have never written a LARP or a character before, how to write a character for that kind of LARP, where the setting is kind of impersonal to the characters, but the characters are still supposed to be like invested and like have those like big experiences or feelings in the LARP. So do you have like, what would you
quick tips? I think that it's the players can draw a lot from the backstory of that character. So especially if players are writing their own characters, or if they are influencing on that, then a player can have draw a lot of emotions even without clear triggers in that LARP. So if it's very much something that the players are creating for themselves, it gives a lot more freedom for them to think that what they find interesting and what they find that they can draw inspiration from. But when you are writing for others, then it's a better idea to write things that are relevant, because you don't know what the player actually wants to feel and what kind of emotions they want to experience.
I would write a TLDR for new players. This is your name and these are your contact names, and this is your mission. Yeah. And then the 10 pages of fluff. Yeah. So it's easier for new players to pick up that this is what I was supposed to do. Yeah, and if there is something that you really want happening in the LARP, say it out loud, say it clearly in the character, put it like, this is your to-do list, make sure that these things happen, and then there can be the backstory and stuff in addition to that. But if it's something that is very important, then make sure that it is actually coming into the play. All right, thank you very much.